Hello. How's everybody doing? Right, this is a very unusual onboarding thing, so everybody can put on their microphones and talk. Mon, hey, how's it going?
Pretty good.
Nice. Okay, great. So I can also hear you guys. That's good. Good news. I am staring into a camera screen, so it's very small. It's very hard for me to tell who's joined, but I can see there's at least two other people here already, which is great. We might give it a minute or two before we start. In the meantime, Martin, how you doing, man?
I had a great holiday.
Lovely, lovely to hear. Energized, ready to be back?
Yes. What about you? You went
Nice.
cycling, right?
Yes. I went to the Dolomites and did a bit of cycling. Not as intense as it sounds, but yes, bit of cycling.
Through the heat.
Okay. Yes, in the heat. Well, this is why I opted for places with swimming pools to stay at. Top tip: pick swimming pool hotels with swimming pools. Okay, it's 12:32. I'll give it till 12:33, and then we'll kick this off. All right. Okay, Mon, I think I'm going to be presenting to you today. So let's just go through it, have a back and
Looking
forth.
forward to it. Yeah.
It's recorded and we can share it with people and chalk it off as a experience, I suppose. So this is our first Ask Me Anything, the humanoid hype. I've been asked to get involved because I am little bit about who I am. So I'm the innovation manager here at Wandelbots. I started at Wandelbots actually in product management and then moved to engineering management. And now I'm part of the innovation management team, where my first role in that position was to identify how humanoids are going to affect our company and how we can actually work with them. So I got involved by buying a Unitary G1 to try and understand how it works. And then since then, we've done multiple projects and worked on proof of concepts and also integrated it into our platform. So Martin, since it's you, I assume you know what our platform is, but Wandelbots Nova is the platform that we offer, which is a unified controlling platform for industrial robots. And now we are moving to what I call new form factors. So things like AMRs and humanoids. And then a little bit more on my background. I previously, so before Wandelbots, sold industrial robots into food and beverage and also some pharmaceutical, but mostly food and beverage. So companies like Unilever or Simplot, and then CSL in Australia. So I have a little bit of understanding as to manufacturing and how these things fit together. Cool. The way we intended this to work is that I have set aside a couple of topics that we will have here on the screen, which are reversed for me, but these are some topics that you can pick from. I know we also already have two questions, which I'm hoping I can get assistance for in the background. And then, Mon, any questions you have, we can go through them and just have a bit of a back and forth. So shall we start with the pre-canned questions that we got during the application process of the many people that are here? Could you help me? Maybe I'll take out my phone. I think I can find those questions on my phone.
I think I remember one. The one was,
Yes.
what's the biggest obstacle currently for bringing humanoids into production, make them valuable and doing meaningful things?
Okay. Yeah. So first off, a lot of this is my opinion. So it's not necessarily Wandelbot's perspective. It's my opinion. The obvious one that comes up time and time again is data. So we do not have enough human-centric data. Right now, it's video-based data in order to be able to build large models. So the very first one you would hear of is we need to be able to collect more data. I would argue that it's not so much to build generalist models. So we don't just need lots of general data. We need highly specific, useful data for the specific tasks we want robots to do. Then the next one that's hyped more after that, I think, is safety. Anybody who wants to put this into an industrial environment kind of expects safety to be covered, to know that it can work well. But the bigger topic, in my opinion, is actually going to be reliability. So yes, safety is important. And the topic is there because we're not at the point where these robots are functioning on an everyday basis. But when you start to look at them in comparison to the work that's been done with industrial robots, the motors that we use, so the type of motors that are in the robots and the way that they're operated, are tested for X number of cycles, but we don't know yet that those robots are going to be able to repetitively do those tasks for 5, 10, 15 years. And it's going to be the maintenance, and also how does it react when, say, the motor's worn down a bit. Does now the robot just stop, or does it fall over, or how to get around that? The best solution I've seen is where heat and different sensor data is actually built into the models so that they adapt to how the robot degrades over time. But that then brings us back to the data question. So you need to be able to collect all that data to be able to train the model to accommodate for when those things happen. It's very hard to synthesize. So hopefully that answers that question. Did you happen to have the others, Martin?
Yes. So your assumption around the timeline until we see humanoids on the shop floor outside of POCs. So a lot of things we see are POCs and demos, but when is the real work going to start?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think if you're in sales, this is definitely the one that you want to be aware of. When can we start making money out of these things? Or I guess also when does it start to become the norm? Based on what I've seen, this is a question that needs a bit more context. So we need to first understand what we mean by after a POC. So how is a humanoid productive after a POC? Does it mean that there is still a team of engineers, like system integrators, that are on hand that can fix the robot whenever something happens? Because right now we're talking about VLAs or humanoid robots that are reaching almost 80, 90% efficiency. But that still means that 1 out of every 10 functions doesn't work. And let's say 1 out of 1,000 means that somebody needs to get involved, which means now you're still paying an engineer to be there. If that's if the requirement is just that it's productive and that it's working, but you still need people to work there, maybe 20, 30, we can already see some companies implementing humanoids in manufacturing in a regular basis, but whether they stay and continue to do that work is not clear yet. If your requirement is that it's gotten to a point where a Mittelstand, SME, small to medium business, can just go and purchase one of these robots and then point it at something to do and know that it's going to work without needing to, create a press release and tell the world that, look, we're using humanoids. I think that might be a longer time horizon. I think we're probably looking, not that much further, but 2035 maybe. Probably well out of my timeline, because there's a lot of nuance that needs to be resolved. And also we need to be able to transfer skills. So we need to be able to say that a humanoid is trained here and then those skills can work somewhere else. And that hasn't exactly been solved yet. So hopefully that answers that question. Cool. Thanks, Martin. I guess now it comes to, what do you want to talk about?
I have a couple of more questions, but I give the stage to the others first, if they have any.
So I honestly believe the other three people in our room are Alex. So Alex is here helping me set up, and then I think Wandelbots and one other moderator.
Oh no, we have some audience here.
Oh, we do.
Yeah.
Great, guys! Please put your microphones on. I hope that it's easy. Or if it's easier, there's a chat function. You can throw something into the chat, and we can see it here, and then we can answer those questions. Man, Martin, I thought I was talking to you the whole time.
No, people are here.
Great.
But maybe in the meantime, because you already mentioned it, and you have the question on your slide there, where are humanoids making money today? And you said like there are deployments and they make money, not to a known degree, but where would you say money is made from humanoids already in production?
Yeah. Okay. I'm glad you asked that, because it's something I've dealt with, and I'm backwards here, so my mouse is moving difficult. That's the one, right? Number 3. No. There it is. Good. So from my experience, once we got a humanoid and we started to understand how to get it to work, the very first place that we made money off of it was what I would call entertainment. This is where large corporates or even smaller people, smaller companies want to show the world that they are at the forefront of technology. And so they want to have a humanoid part of events or part of discussions to show people that they can touch and feel and actually work with these things. And if you're a robotics company or a system integrator that knows how to work with these, it's a great way to make some money. It's essentially hardware rental or engineering rental. I made this joke often that I studied 6 years of mechatronic engineering, went around the world, so traveled to Australia, worked there in robotics for a while, came all the way to Germany to work with the best engineers, and now I am a glorified robotic joker or entertainer, because that's what I was doing for a while. But it answers the question. It makes money. People are willing to pay for it. The second one is proof of concepts. So around the same idea, companies want to be able to understand how humanoids are going to affect them. And so they're willing to pay for the learnings of trying to apply humanoids into their working environment. It's something that I'm working on regularly at the moment with other customers, but I know that any manufacturer who is aware of this and is willing to try, it's something that is worth putting some money into. And if you think about it from their perspective, from a manufacturer's perspective, it's a small investment to validate whether they need to be on board with this or they can let it go. Sorry, Martin, you said?
So basically, like the next stage is entirely missing still from going then into like mass deployment and scaling what you have shown in a proof of concept.
From what I've seen today, as in places and ways that money is made with humanoids today, no. The biggest announcements and things that you see from robotic OEMs, the guys making these things, is all either proof of concepts or where they're trialing robots in deployment. They're not actively working in factories, and there maybe that I'm not aware of. There are robots in factories that are working, but they would still be as robots as a service model. So there's big effort going into maintaining them and making sure that they work. So I haven't added that as a profitable way to make money because I'm not even sure if these guys are making money. Yeah. I mean, if you have a different opinion though, happy to hear it.
No, but it's interesting to hear because I find it very hard to really understand what is real and what is like what is a demo, what
Yeah.
works like one in 10 times, and that's the one that is then shown.
Yep.
So we can look into what is out there, what you can already purchase, like in terms of hardware or in terms of robot brains, what NVIDIA produces, open source models. You can buy as you mentioned, also a Unitary robot. Like this is
Yep.
something you can really see like what the capabilities are. But then a lot of like companies build like in stealth in their factories, and the assumption is they are like far more ahead and advanced in the technology. So the question would be
Yep.
like, is it really that, or are they working like with the same things? And like we can say the technology isn't that advanced yet for everyone.
Yeah, it's a very good point. And the counter I would have to that is if somebody has reached a point where these robots are being productive to the level that they're keeping them a secret, you know, when we see this happen, I've seen it in the camera industry, where somebody realizes or finds a way to use cameras to identify something that others didn't have. So it became part of their USP. In this case, it was food and beverage. So it was a large like fruits manufacturer, and their engineers were able to design a system that allowed them to identify which fruits were bruised and which weren't, so that they could automate that process. And it gave them throughput that nobody else could keep up with. Um, Even in that case, although they kept it quiet as much as possible, it was clear to the industry that like something had changed, right? And if what you're saying is that like there's a manufacturer out there that's now testing in their environment, say Tesla, for instance, they're the obvious one. They've got this humanoid in development. They've got the perfect test environment for it. Why are they not already using it? And if they were, I'm pretty certain that we would have seen like a huge spike in output of cars, or like a noticeable change. Like they would have let go of a bunch of people because now they can use humanoids. Like it would have come out, maybe not in the way that they expected, but we would have heard of it. You know. Um, so yeah, in my opinion, the difference between what's being worked on in little factories and things is not too far off from what we see publicized.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
Good. I'm going to try and encourage our visitors to figure out the safety and security settings on their webpage.
Hi,
And
Shawn. Here is
oh,
Martina.
hey, Martina.
We had a question in the chat from Leona. Which use cases do you see first for humanoids in production?
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you for the question. So I can tell you from my experience what use cases I've seen, and the most obvious one is pick and place. So KLTs, boxes. Uh, it's something that humans have to do often, moving boxes from one place to another. And KLTs, or if you're not from Germany, it's just standard plastic totes. They are the most common thing to move around, and so that's kind of the most obvious use case at the moment. The other side is the domestic side, which we don't work with as much, where they're trying to create generalist models to be able to allow humanoids to do cleaning and all of the things we don't want to do, folding, washing, packing, and picking the.
Shawn, if you're still talking, we can't hear you anymore.
Martin, can you guys still hear me?
Now we can hear you again. Yeah.
Maybe I accidentally muted myself. Let's hope not. All right. Where did you guys lose me?
KLT handling. I think that was the last thing.
Right. Then the next place where I think that humanoids will become most valuable is dangerous environments, places where humans otherwise have to put on PPE so chemical, for instance. I've seen chemical plants or even food manufacturing. So if anyone's ever been into a blast freezer, it's not a fun place to be. You get a timer that you set, which tells you how long you can be in there, for instance. Those kind of environments where you can allow a humanoid to do the same thing, where you don't have to put a human in danger. I think those are the most valuable positions. But also realistically, anything that can save a human effort in manufacturing that is not too complex, like moving KLTs or moving pieces around, machine tending, that sort of thing. Thanks for the question.
Shawn, actually, the question had an add-on, a second part of it. It
Sure.
says, do you see a difference between the use cases for SME and automotive?
Do I see a difference between the use cases in SME and automotive? Yes. So I need to clarify. There is a lot of similarities because everything that can be done in automotive could probably be used for SMEs, depending on what the SME is doing. SME covers a lot of things, but what I do know is that right now there's not enough data for what's called a world model. So the bet is we collect enough data egocentric data, so camera with hand tracking data to be able to build what they call a world model, which is so a humanoid could have a full understanding of being able to do all kinds of generalist tasks. That data is lacking at the moment, and in my opinion is not really the right way to go. Like more specific task-oriented data that allows the humanoid to do the things that it needs to do for that specific environment is more valuable. But this means that companies in automotive would have the funds to be able to actually collect that accurate kind of data, which doesn't apply so much to SMEs. And this is where I think the differentiator comes in. SMEs are ultimately going to become the ones that need a generalist model or a preset selection of tasks or skills that they can just choose from. So hopefully that answers your question, but automotive would get value out of it because they can specialize the robots to do exactly what they need it to do. SMEs will get value, but probably at a later stage because they could benefit from skills that are trained and shared freely or already a part of the humanoid. Hopefully that answers it correctly. Did I get it right that these are questions from the chat and not you directly?
Yeah, there are questions from the chat.
Okay. For some reason, I don't see these questions in my chat. Maybe. Okay, good. But thank you so much. Thanks for the question, and I really, really appreciate it. All right, Wandelbots team, hit me with any question. Shall we pick another one of these topics?
Yeah, maybe then go to the next one because you already mentioned like word models versus like pre-trained skills and so on. Like what do you see currently is being done in terms of like the intelligent layer or the brain? And is it like going to converge into this one big model, this generalist policy being able to serve every SMB use case or automotive, or is it like still a lot of engineering around it, an orchestration layer, different models, different skills?
Yeah, it's a brilliant question, and I think you and I, Martin, understand this stuff at a different level because we've dealt with it. But I'm going to try to talk about it in a way that everybody can understand. So what I was hoping to talk about in here is not to answer your question. So I'll talk about models first. The models that humanoids run on are essentially based on an LLM. So that means it's a black box. You put language in and you get language out. In our case with VLAs, Vision Language Action Models, you put in a camera image, so a low resolution image, and all of the information about the robot. Most importantly, the joint positions, so where each motor is. And then you add some text to it that says, this is the goal of what I want to do. And then the LLM, that black box, like your ChatGPT, returns a bunch of joints, as in where the motors should be predictively to try and achieve what you want to do. And the very first way of applying this, so to get the robot to try and do these things, is you just take exactly what comes out of that black box and you apply it to the motors to see how it reacts. It's a very rudimentary way of doing it, but they then, well, we or anybody that's coding these will often take those predictions and then request the LLM for more predictions and try and blend them together to get a better and better result. And the parameters that we play with is how long of a time horizon do we attempt to predict, and how often do we ask the LLM for those predictions. So this gives us what's called a VLA, but it's not very good because it's based on what you've put in. So as good as the data in is how good the data out will be. So then you have to do some kind of blending, a way to deal with that information so that the robot doesn't necessarily jerk as much and doesn't, just so that the robot looks a bit more natural. And there's a couple of ways that you can do that. You can also use another LLM. So you could use another AI model that says, take in all of this information and then tell me what the best outcome should be. Or you can use basic programming to blend it. Or in the case of some humanoid robots, they actually use a third layer. So they use 3 LLMs or 3 AI models to get all the way down to the motor control layer so that what the robot's actually doing is very smooth. So it's very consistent, and the adjustments that you have to make need to be pretty precise and very much aligned before the robot actually agrees to start doing the motion. So that is your basic layer stack for VLAs. And when we talk about VLAs, we're just talking about the arm motion. Then you need to talk about full body motion. So the arms are made up of 7 joints each. Then you have a bunch of other joints, and most of these have about 23 motors or more, excluding the hands. And so you need to control those as well. And that then becomes another model that brings all of these together. Okay, so now we've got the motor control down. How do we tell the robots where it is and how to actually determine what the environment is that it's working in? And the way that we do this is we use another LLM, another AI model, which I think has been coined as like a reasoning model. There are different names for it, but essentially that is your basic ChatGPT 5 or something like a speech-to-speech model. Essentially, it's a multimodal model, which means you can take camera images, sound, like text, anything that you want to put in, and then request that something comes out with some thinking done in between. And so you could use that LLM to determine what VLAs, so which motions you want to be requesting for, that then feeds the rest of the stack. I've lost my train of thought. Martin, have I explained that well?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
So that goes more in the direction of like the orchestrator. It's not the one black box that solves every task magically, right?
Exactly. Yes. So that one black box is more around your world models. And the world models, which some might know of like Groot or full body models like that. This is the concept where if we have enough data, just like with the ChatGPT moment, if we can collect enough data and we can scale the data to a point where the model can determine on its own what the next steps are, then you, in theory, get a model that doesn't need any other orchestration. It just does what you expect it to do. However, the likeliness of this is I'm not sure how good it's going to be, but I guess time will tell. What do you think, Mon? World model or orchestration?
I think orchestration. Because as you also mentioned, like the embodiment itself is very complex if you compare it to a 6-arm robot, for example. So you have a lot of intelligence already like in the basic motion, but then comes like the intelligence also in like solving tasks and then solving long horizon tasks, meaning you have to figure out what individual steps are in the tasks you want to solve. And now I see there's a very, very big challenge to develop some model that is capable of like covering all of this stack and much more reliable and controllable to have multiple stages essentially taking care of individual parts of the problem, I guess.
100% agree. That's my same perspective on it, is that it would be better that way, but also because, and I'm going to go into a bit bigger of a topic here. People have been spending so much time since the Industrial Revolution to try and get humans to a point where they are more specialized in a specific task. So we go through education system and specialization through different universities or work that we're doing to try and get everybody to a point where like you know where you add value and you're very good at doing something specific. Whereas humanoids are the opposite. We're like, robots are great at doing one specific task, but we want them to be more general. And I think that line with world models tends to cross a bit. We're aiming to get robots that are more capable at more things, but badly capable at those things. Whereas the orchestration layer, we could focus on exactly like we are with humans, deciding first where do they add value, and then focusing on making sure that they're good at that specific thing. And this is a bit of like where my blog post comes from, which is sometimes humanoids are not going to be the best solution to many of these things. Very, very often, if you actually do the preparation work well, if you understand your process well, humanoids might not be the first step into automation. And this is a part of realization that's going to have to happen in each factory or at each company's own space to decide, is this the right option, or should we be going with more traditional automation? I still have this slide up, and I can see that there's a couple of things that I've also missed, but is worth maybe talking about here. The original question was just around understanding the software architecture, but what I wanted to get into with this topic was also just data collection and the pipeline as a service. And this comes to, if we are to go to a orchestration where we're teaching individual tasks, there is a lot of work that has to be done in collecting the data, processing the data, and then coming out with a model that then can be orchestrated. And it's something that I think a lot of software companies are also looking at intensely to say, can we offer these as a service? And it's definitely something to keep an eye out for, because I don't think it's as made openly aware as it should be. Right now, the emphasis is on OEMs to just supply it, but it's a whole different space to be involved in. So if you are interested in humanoids and you want to be able to go through this training process, do some research, find out how this actually fits together, or speak to us. We can also help you with that. Okay. I think we sufficiently covered that topic. Martin, what do you think?
I think so too. But maybe just like a short follow-up. If you
Yeah, sure.
we then like think from the other side, like from the end customer or the end customer enterprise that wants to deploy humanoids at scale. Currently, what we see, they work closely together with the OEMs or even become OEMs themselves in developing this hardware. But not every enterprise is going to go down that path and develop their own technology. So how do you see like the deployment going to unfold in the future, and how would it have to be in order for enterprises to be able to adopt? Like, is it done by system integrators, or do we have generalist policies in some sort that you really just open the box and say like the humanoid do this and that and it does it? Like, how could we imagine it?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and I think we got to look at it at the different tiers, so the different company levels. So the small companies, they would just have to buy what's available and use what comes out of the box. The SMEs is going to be, I think, the most interesting space, because there is going to become, and I've seen it with Unitree, and I think Agibot are currently doing it, and I know Wandelbots, we have a similar concept, but not for models, but for other applications. They become there's going to be stores like skill stores, if you want to call them that. I know we had a whole discussion around whether skills is the right name, but eventually you will be able to just purchase the skill that fits the work that you need to do. So there will actually become a market for people to train these things and then supply them as reusable, maybe one-off checkpoints for sale. We are already seeing, I can't remember, I think it's Micro AGI is the company from Germany, who are actually hiring people in the US to collect data. It's a whole new industry where they pay people to wear a camera on their hat and then go do manual labor tasks whilst collecting data. It's an industry that never existed before. And similarly, that's what I think is going to happen in the SMEs. Then in the larger scale companies, data and information is very important, because once you're at a higher scale, the smallest amount of information within your industry determines or can adjust your market share quite a bit. So in that case, it becomes less about being able to have a store where you can just use the skill, but it becomes actually they need to own that whole pipeline. So they need to own the data collection, the data processing. And in that case, it becomes this pipeline as a service, where suppliers offer them the end-to-end solution of connecting to the robot, collecting the data, whether that's in the real world or in virtual, all the way through to getting a checkpoint out that's been validated. Yeah.
I think Unitree already has this like skills store. Currently, you can buy a lot of like those martial arts skills and skateboarding and so on. Not like the KLT handling, but I think they have a concept for it already. Yeah.
Yeah, they have it, and I think it's brilliant because the way it's currently happening, where everybody has to run their own GPUs, spin them up to be able to mimic things. I mean, just it doesn't make sense, especially for an entertainment robot like the G1. It's different dance moves.
Yeah.
Why not share?
Yeah.
Yeah. But then when it comes to actual work, like tasks, you know, if you're an automotive company and you have a bespoke, I don't know, locking ring for your CV joints that you don't want anybody else to know about, you can't really share that skill, because you could potentially reverse engineer it or get the video data back somehow. You know, it's not viable. Great.
Shawn, we have another question here on the chat from Bastian. It's quite a long one. I'm going to read it. So it says, taking into consideration our dependence on certain geographies, for example, Taiwan, in the chip industry, do you see parallels for humanoids or robots in general in the future? Given that most hardware is produced in China, what should Europe and the US focus on building themselves and at a scale to enable competitive prices? Or is the race lost and the Western world can only win on the software side, if at all?
Firstly, thank you so much. That's a very thought-provoking question, and it's quite a political question. So I will lead by saying that I am an optimist. I really think that there is no such thing as we've lost this race. There's always going to be an opportunity to do something better, even if it gets to a point where we feel like there is no other option. And I think that's how people feel about Chinese manufacturing when it comes to humanoids, because they're so ahead of what's happening. But something to keep in mind is that while Taiwan and the US are at the forefront of like the hardware design and the AI, essentially the AI models and what's happening there, China has control over most of the manufacturing because they're extremely good at it. Europe is still the regulatory body for the world when it comes to manufacturing processes. So if you want to use anything in industry and know that it's reliable, generally you look for some kind of European standard. So we will still be that standard. And it doesn't mean that we're necessarily making huge amounts of money out of it, but it is something not to be forgotten. That's for sure. When it comes to the chip manufacturing and making sure that we have, I guess, sovereignty or the ability to manufacture these things on our own, I would actually flip the story and rather look at how do we, as a global society, get back to a way where we can rely on these different countries on doing what they do best, because that's probably the right answer here. Is not how do we find out how to separate the world more so that one can be better than the other, but more how can we work towards ensuring that everybody works together peacefully. That's my take on it. Realistically, though, there's only a few things that would stop every country from being able to manufacture their own. And if you look at the value chain for AI chips, there is the actual machines that go to TSMC to make the chips, which are designed in the Netherlands, I believe. So there is a big play from Europe's side into this whole chain. Then TSMC, while they are the main manufacturer, the factory that they use, the way that it's made there, can still be shipped. So that becomes a question of time and not necessarily won or lost. Those things can come onshore. It could be done in the US. It could be done in Europe. It's just about agreements that could happen. And then when it comes to the Europe being the software layer, look, that's the industry I'm in, and I really think that that's the biggest benefit that Europe would have right now. So this is why it's my standpoint, but it's not the only place that we could do well. Cool, that was a great question, and I'm intrigued as to why I don't see these things in the chat. But thank you so much for reading them out.
We do have another one. I can read it out for you.
This setup is working. I like it.
It's a question from Rohit. He asks, what are the things that humanoids can do with Nova, and how is Nova developing?
Okay. So Rohit, if you guys don't know, works for Wandelbots. And it's a great question, Rohit. If you were to buy Nova today, you can do nothing with humanoids. Sorry, these are the facts. But we are developing on it at the moment, and it's all in test. Essentially, what Nova would do with humanoids is become the orchestration layer. So if you have a fleet of robots, we would be able to identify where they are, what it is that they're doing, and manage the orchestration, all the way down to sending the commands. So telling the robot where to go and which tasks to perform. It would depend on which humanoid you're using. So with the Unitary, for instance, we actually control the motors directly because of how their architecture fits together. And then with Agibot, we would inform it. We would say, please run this model, and then Agibot take control of the model orchestration. So hopefully that covers it. But yes, if you guys really are interested in Nova and what can happen with humanoids in Nova, just get in contact with us, and I'm happy to demo. Great. Does that mean there's another one? Come on, Rohit, hit me with something difficult.
Can you go back to your main slide with the topics?
Sure. Let's do that.
That sparks the ideas with the people.
Okay. Claude Code's design didn't work, so we'll go the manual way. Am I going the wrong way? I'm going the wrong way. Cool.
I'd be interested in your take on robot personalities in the Uncanny Valley.
Oh, yes, I'm so glad you asked that one. And the reason is when I started with the Unitree, one of the demos that we had to do was to actually get, and maybe I should open the slide so long. Which one was it? I can't actually read these because they're backwards.
5.
So 5.
Down. Yeah.
This one, that one. Yes. Yeah. That's not it. That's 4.
That's 8.
That's 5. No? Yes, that's it. Okay.
Yeah.
When I first started working with the Unitree, we needed to actually make the Unitree work on stage and give a presentation. And in theory, how hard could it be? Goes onto the stage and it does some interaction, but I wanted to get it to interact with people. So we used the ChatGPT real-time model as the reasoning model. I don't know if you remember when I was explaining all the different layers, but that top layer, we used this speech-to-speech. So ChatGPT real-time is what you would use if you were making a online call agent where somebody could phone in and then it sounds like a real person on the other side. And then we adapted it to give the robot a personality. And that, from a social experiment, was fascinating. Because all of a sudden, people could interact with this robot on a more human level. And I would take the robot out, and for safety reasons, you have to teleoperate it. Not teleoperate it, but remote control it. And so I would walk it to people and then have the robot converse with them, and then it calls the actions like wave or clap or whatever relates to the environment that it's in. And what was fascinating was that when people didn't know I was remote controlling it, so they thought the robot was autonomous, people were extremely mean, as in very forceful with this robot. They would tell it to go fetch me a beer or go do this thing, or do something. And then as soon as they understood that actually there's a human behind it that's controlling this, their opinion towards the robot would drastically change, which for me was very interesting because it made me realize that, yes, robots need to be productive. We need to be able to do things with them, but they also need to work in human environments, which means that they need to be able to interact with humans in a way that humans want to interact with them. And I think it's a problem that maybe isn't as big as people think, but when they really start working continuously, it's going to be quite a strong contention point. Yeah, so I think the guys who have done some work like for Disney and where they're intentionally making interactive robots, they're seeing a lot of value coming out of robots that are accepted. And if you can build a robot, or actually if you can build any automation system that is easily accepted by people, you're ahead of everybody else by far. I'm so glad you asked that one.
That's an interesting perspective on because you see a lot of different designs, right? Some look really like from Terminator themselves. Some are really playful. For example, Sunday Robotics, which is deployed in homes and so on. I saw this chart about perceived capability of a humanoid, basically along its form factor. So more human-like, people perceive it as more capable. And if it's on wheels and has no head, then maybe it's not as capable. And this is also like a spectrum where companies try to fit in, does not make it superhuman, because then the expectations are too high. So yeah, fits your take on that. Yeah.
For the OEMs that are trying to decide how to make these things, I think it's got to be so hard to decide. I saw Midea. So Midea, I think in Germany mostly sell air conditioning units, but they're also an electronics manufacturer. And they came out with a humanoid where they said, we designed it for our factory to do a specific set of tasks. And it's a 6-arm. So it has like 2 arms up here, 2 here, and 2 over here. Humanoid robot, bipedal. And it looks creepy. It looks like a spider or something. And I imagine that like they will never sell them because it just looks too strange to be able to accept. However, when you look at like X1, the interest from X1, so for those that don't know, X1 is a humanoid that's entirely covered in, I think it's cotton or fabric. So it's soft to the touch. And the intention is that it works in your home. And it's so much easier to work with that kind of robot and feel like it's not going to harm you just because of the texture and the look and the feel of it, in comparison to, say, something that is like, I'm trying to remember the name, Clone. Clone is another very interesting humanoid company who are using biomimicry instead of motors to control their robot. And their robot looks a bit like something out of Westworld, which is, it looks almost human-like. And this is where if you get too close to looking like a human, like you were saying, not only do we expect the capabilities to be the same, but we also start to fear the same things we fear of humans. So yeah, it's interesting to see where OEMs decide to place their humanoids. And something that maybe people are not aware of, but in a humanoid, the most important parts are the processor, the legs, and the arms. The torso is just about weight distribution and where to store things like the battery, and the head is almost not even required. Sometimes the head is used to mount a camera, but most of the time you don't really need it. So it just becomes a design element as to like, how do you make it look? Yeah.
Cool. Shawn, we've got another question.
Yeah. Go for it.
So it says, thanks, Shawn, for your clarification about Nova's current fit with humanoids. Do you see the overall humanoids hardware offer mature enough? Do you see the overall humanoids hardware offer mature enough for limiting your Nova's development to an hardware agnostic platform, or do you target to develop your own hardware as a USP? Interesting. I'm not sure I understood the full question, but I'll try and answer portions of it and then just retype the question if you can, if I miss anything. So the beginning part of your question is around the form factors. The way that Nova currently deals with form factors is that we treat the motion part of it, so the bottom half of it, as something separate. So you could use a robot dog or a humanoid's legs or a AGV, because those are the things that determine where it moves, translates in space. So that is separated from the upper body. And the upper body is, I see something on the screen, but I don't know what it means.
5 minutes left.
Okay.
In the meeting.
Great, thanks. So we then treat the upper body as the manipulator part. And this is so that we can use, for instance, dual arms from a humanoid, a single 6-axis robot, or some other manipulator that goes at the top. So that's how we handle new form factors, is what our team's called. Then the second part of your question was, is Wandelbots looking at building a humanoid as a USP, as something that they're going to do separately? No. Wandelbots as a company has no intention of building our own humanoid. We have a very good understanding of how they work, but we use this to build our platform so that it becomes robot agnostic, so that you can build applications and things that you're sharing with people or with your customer, and you can trust that it's going to work across different robot brands or different platforms. So hopefully that answers your question. And feel free to re-ask it if it doesn't.
You got a thumbs up. I don't know if you can see it from distance, but it seemed to have answered it.
Okay, great. That's good.
So maybe we can go for the last one. Again from Rohit. How can the data be kept accurate, diverse, secure, and free from bias? Can Nova help there?
Accurate, secure, and free. Rohit, you're gonna have to help me, but I think you're talking about the LLM data. So the communication data, is that it?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, all right. So we are not training large language models here. That question is not something that Nova can necessarily solve. So you would end up using the LLM that you prefer. If it's a company that's concerned about that kind of thing, you would need to ensure that you post-train an existing model to make sure that that is without bias. But as far as I understand your question, it's not something that Nova can solve. What we can do, though, is allow you to store your data in a way that fits your company's policies, make sure that it's stored in a place that's secure. But as far as ensuring the information going into an LLM is unbiased, I think that's quite difficult. The best thing that you probably could do, so if we're talking about a reasoning model, for instance, where you want your robot to be able to communicate, we could make sure that we help you to post-train those models to answer as best as possible within what your company needs it to. Hopefully that answers it. Great. We're good for time. Okay, guys, that was a very interesting first intro to a Ask Me Anything, and I hope you all learned something. Please feel free to post some more questions, and we can answer you separately. Otherwise, yeah, we might do this again. Perhaps get a bit more specific, and pick a more specific topic. So if you have something you want to hear about from our side, yeah, maybe put that in the comments. And yeah, let's see you guys next time. Thanks so much.